Language and society. Language is very essential in our lives. It is a basic fundamental unit in every individual's life. It enables us to pose questions, report problems, seek help, crack jokes, etc. Today's society speaks of language as the most significant of all. Humans engage themselves in speech to convey matters and perform other tasks to survive. Talking with each other by itself is a part of language. For every simple thing, even to ask someone for a direction to a place, one needs to talk to converse with the other. At the time of an interview, one needs to both pose questions and reply with an answer. At the time of marriage, again, language plays a very important role in the society. Thus, we find how language plays a significant role in human activities on a daily basis. Not only human activities, but also institutional and social organizations like business dealing, political aspects, educational systems, parliamentary debates, and other debates in schools and colleges are all dependent on language. Therefore, we find how language plays necessary and important role in the heart of the society to communicate and explain various issues in life. There is a mutual understanding between language and society. In other words, communication is also a key factor in mingling with the social crowd. A proper communication is required for a proper response and explanation. Grammar is to be noted where language is concerned, but still, humans do commit mistakes in their speech and spellings in writings. All these may be neglected and ignored in few circumstances, not in all situations. Language is therefore a part of the human system of communication. Language families. Languages are grouped into families called language families. It is nothing but a group of similar related languages formed from the ancestral generation, and this is termed as proto-language. Based on the status of one's own family, the ancestral language can be inherited and obtained. Even if the past history is known, the proto-language would be easier to study. For example, the Proto-Romance language in the past, which was considered to be the vulgar language, was converted to as the Proto-Romance language. Proto-language is thus indirectly known or discovered. Sanskrit was also the ancestral language for sub-languages of the Indian subcontinent like Bengali, Hindi, Urdu, Marathi, and further these were placed under a common family called the Proto-Indo-European language. The sub-languages are called branches. The common ancestor, the Proto-Indo-European language, has Germanic, Romance, and Slavic as branches. Maintaining relationships with languages is quite easy. If we trace the Romance languages, wherein 2000 years ago, when Latin was considered to be the ancestral language in Italy, the Roman conquest later spread the Latin language across Europe. Here, it then spread to other small regions and became a specific language to a specific social group. This Roman Empire further broke into small specific groups of languages into Romance languages that are well known, namely French, Italian, Portuguese, and Spanish, and so on. Romance is the branch of language for the Indo-European language family. For example, look at the word water. In all the three forms of Romance languages, the differences can be easily identified, keeping the ancestral language in hand. But not all cases have proofs of the past history of language. Therefore, languages which have some common link with those of the descendants alone are considered among social groups. The word water might look similar when viewed within the social groups, whereas it may not seem similar across groups. Those languages that seem to be same within the group fall into the Indo-European language family, and the second, which is across the group, falls into the Slavic branch of language family. There is no past evidence of or proof of the Proto-Germanic or the Proto-Slavic language. Still, it is assumed that these two languages would have existed initially. All the languages of the world belong to the family of languages. Some languages have no relatives or any kind of relationship and belong to what is called language isolates. These may contain fewer amounts of family languages. Basque is an example of an isolate family. Isolate languages are known to have few relatives, but recovery of its language would be minimal. These do not come under any of the family languages. Within families, there may also be branches that fall under isolates, such as Armenian, which is an isolate that is within Indo-European language. Another example of an isolate language is Basque language. This language has no relationship with other languages. Despite its influence by the Romance languages, Basque language still stands unrelated to other languages and remains as isolate language. Social setting of language. According to the circumstances of a speech group, a language will vary socially. For example, look at the American English. It has a lot of varieties and specific groups belonging to a larger language called English. These specific subsets or groups may differ in geography. In other words, languages differ or express according to a group or identity. They can differ between the inside and outside, the strangers and the known, the enemy from the friend. All these show how languages express their identity in its own unique way. Families, couples, roommates, colleagues, friends, kith and kin, all other small subgroups present their language in a specific way according to the interest of an individual in the group and also express in the same specific manner. Those involved in business form a social group among themselves to satisfy, impress and perplex those outside the group. For instance, a two-way communication between two people. We find two types of people, one who conveys a message to be superior or of greater power compared to the other who listens, takes the subordinate place. Normally, people who have a poor language conversation, especially the larger social group who pronounce differently, those with different ethnic factors, other social sectors and variable ages fall under a social dialect. People of today sometimes for namesake when on media or air tend to swear, but it's a question to think if they really mean they swear, they take up or just mere words. Gone are the days in the 1940s and 50s where they stick to what they swear. Is there divergence among languages in developed sectors? This divergence may slowly create a great difference among various social sectors, which may lead to differences in speech and communication. Today, look at the trend where people make use of internet, email, wherein all spellings, grammatical mistakes are all corrected and checked. This makes human beings lazy and lethargic. The mails and other letters have all turned to be informal. Those who have no proper writing or language skills are also boldly making use of such advantages as their work seems easy. Moreover, with the latest technology of the programming system itself that checks mistakes, errors, making use of the graphics and other features on the computer enhances all sectors of people to use language in different ways. Therefore, we notice that the standard of the level at which language is used is low. It has to develop from within. Small communities should ensure the use of grammar, spellings, writing style and other such skills to make sure that the standard of language is brought up. But instead, we lack such standards especially when it comes to English. Although we may have efficient teachers, editors, writers who could guide us in our language, still the standard is low in many sectors. English has now become a language as that of communication by display, design, or a fluidic communication. If one is at work in a high post, he or she has to speak the right language. Local or vulgar speech will only put down the individual and result in loss of job. At the same time, it also depends on the type of job that we do and hold. Supposing it's a private firm, a vernacular language may be minimally considered, or during the free time among friends, such languages could be spoken. But when amongst higher officials and those with high authority, one should know the right language skills to be applied. Today, English is the leading official language wherein people all over the world and nationally understand and learn English compared to other languages like Tamil or Telugu. Hindi may not be regarded as a professional or official language. There should never be clash among the individuals just for the sake of language. One should accept each other the way they are, no matter what languages they know, and help one another learn different languages. Regional variations in language. The different varieties in English that we come across today are all unique variants of language. These were all initiated during the British period, promoting special key features like spelling, pronunciation, semantics, and grammar in India. Indian English is referred to as a superset of all these varieties of language, in other words regarded as Indian variants. There is regional variations in English where pronunciation is considered. Different regions add different flavors of pronunciation. For example, Karnataka, Andhra, northeastern India, Bengal, Orissa are all filled with differences in pronunciation in the language. If we compare the Indian English to the British way of pronunciation, there results a lot of Indian pronunciations. Some examples to understand them are diphthongs. The British way of pronouncing is different when compared to the Indian way. Cake as cake and poor as poor, etc. The next is the alveolar sounds or harsher sounds according to the British pronunciation. Next, the dental fricatives, th and the, replaced by soft h and soft the. We and we, according to the British, are pronounced similar to w throughout India, and they are usually merged with ba in Bengali, Assamese, and Orissa pronunciations of English language. Example, wine and wine are both pronounced somewhat similar to wine, whereas wet and wet and bet are all pronounced as bet in Bengali speech. There are also words in English that we create or frame and are used only in the Indian English. For example, words like prepone, prepone a trip, and foreign return, those returned from abroad, are all used by the Indian English language speakers. Pluralization of unnecessary words are also noticed in Indian English, such as breads, foods, advices, etc. Numerous dialects have been formed in the Indian English that is totally different from the standard type of English that most educators establish. This helps us to differentiate a person's background completely. Dialects are normally influenced by other forms of languages from other sectors and groups of different regional languages along with English. One can easily find out if the person knows the standard English by their phonology, pronunciation, and so on, especially when the conversation is between two individuals of two different dialects. Indian English said to be a network of varieties comprising of both regional and occupational dialects that results as a complex language in the country. Dialects like Malayali English, Tamilian English, Punjabi English, and Hindi English are all said to be widely recognized. These types are also accompanied by the local slang English language called the butter English, like the bazaar English and so on. The Scottish English had rose because of these regional and socio-economic dialects forms of language. Language, as discussed earlier, plays an important role in differentiating members with their ethnicity. Many researchers and scholars have also marked the language that does play a significant role in determining the ethnic groups in a society. Some scholars also commented the fact that language is the only sign that raises ethnic groups. The ethnicity of any dialect can be found based on the language. Some scholars raise an assertive statement as to the relationship between language and the ethno-national group to be granted. We'll now do a detailed study of the ethnicity of language and how language plays a role in determining ethnic groups in the society. Language as an ethnic distinction. The ethnicity of a group can be identified by its members having interest in performing tasks and the way they hold themselves, etc. Sometimes a particular member from the group may show a different attitude, have different interests in things, may communicate differently, may also seek help in communicating the right way. Such are the signs of ethnicity among groups of different regions. A Chinese member from a group may show himself as a person from a minority class just to obtain opportunities and benefits. On the other hand, the Taiwanese may refuse to stand out as Chinese, as they would fight for their freedom. Every group may have their own ethnicity and unique features, but how we differentiate members of different ethnic groups is of importance. We can differentiate based on the language, the biological heritage, and the religious beliefs. If we look at the biological heritage, it brings about an argument between various ethnic groups. The biological heritage also lacks proof from the past and is just interpreted. Historical data or other social political features may not be a proof to detect ethnicity, but still, when we come across differences between ethnic groups, it has to be confirmed and traced for ethnicity and language. It is also very obvious that languages play a role in everyone's life. Language is a part of communication in a way that it differentiates us based on our ethnicity, our culture, heritage, etc. Not everybody from different social groups would understand each other's language or culture. Languages and society are related as one. Those communicating in a particular language belong to that specific society. Let us take, for example, Mongolian and Chinese are languages from two different ends and thus different societies with different ethnic factors. Apart from language, religion also plays a role in discerning the ethnicity of a group. It also depends on the language and culture. For example, Muslim is the official religion of Pakistan and Arabic being the sacred language, the script may vary and is therefore regarded as a different new language. Thus, in this example, we find how language and religion go hand in hand, responsible for determining its ethnicity. The dialects differ between neighboring regions in language. There are a lot of examples to explain the above statement. For example, Serbian and Croatian have differences in grammar and vocabulary but still remain at all equal pace. Other examples are Bulgarian, Macedonian, Dutch, Danish, etc. are all regarded as different languages with similar dialects. All these vary and depend on the speaker. Though there are differences in grammar among these languages, there still exists equality between the regions and their ethnicity, but still no recorded data exists. Language may differ ethnically among subgroups, among different sectors, and thus we find language a fundamental factor in determining the ethnic factor. Next, We'll also be moving into another form of language called anti-language, that is used to replace another word or meaning in communication as a protective measure in communication. What is anti-language? This type of a language is a language that is spoken within a specific major group by a subgroup. This subgroup may form an anti-language just for creating a new bond among its own members within a society. In other cases, the main purpose to create a new language would be to maintain secrecy of what is spoken or done within the group members and not letting it known to members outside the subgroup. The purpose is just as a protective measure against the external team. Thus, in these above said cases, anti-language can be followed. This type of a language is also understood only by the people within the subgroup. Thus, secrecy is maintained by the members of the anti-society, wherein other outsiders will not be able to find out their secrets or even understand the language. All their activities and ideas are also maintained a secret. This anti-language concept was brought about by M.A. Halliday, who is a linguist as well. He came up with this idea when he generated an alternative word for the term lingua franca. He also made some criteria to be followed while using anti-language principle. Anti-language is used just like another alternative for something else. There are word lists that guide us within the previous historical records of different cultures and their languages. It's a modified type of language, like replacing an old for a new. Anti-language also involves correct usage of grammar and spellings. Proper communication is essential. Exchanging new words and their meanings to a layman should be practiced. Anti-language should not be misinterpreted as an alternative language. Instead, it should be known as the second life factor. When people use anti-language, they make changes in words, spellings, involving change of original meanings for words and changing the entire language right from the beginning. It is basically like a vehicle of re-socializing. Language and anti-language are interconnected. Once it is used in any conversation, it thereafter has to be maintained. An example for anti-language is CB slang that generated in the 1980s by the truck drivers in USA. And later it was spread to other countries like Mexico, Germany and Canada. We therefore find records created in the past for anti-language usage. Anti-language should never be considered a negative factor, as it helps to converse to people who may not even follow or understand the original context. In such cases, new words made easier with better understandable codes or meanings can be given. It is yet another form of communicating to one another. Society and language can be grouped together, while anti-society and anti-language can be grouped together. Anti-language is also used if one lands in a new country of different culture. For example, the French region in Canada. One can make use of new words to overcome the language conflicts that might occur unnecessarily. Thus, we conclude that anti-language is very unique in its own form. It expresses new metaphors and words that are unknown. While concluding, I would like to say that language and society are related with each other. A good language enables better communication. Without language, one cannot communicate properly. It also determines the ethnicity within a society. There are languages of different regions with different pronunciations and grammar. Language and society is linked together, and anti-language and anti-society are grouped together. Anti-language is seen to be another form of language used mainly as a protective measure in terms of maintaining secrecy within groups. Here, we have seen that in anti-language, people change existing words, their meanings, and create new words for their own convenience. Despite culture, heritage, and ethnicity, language stands as unique criteria in communication throughout the world. It is also important that we maintain a standard level of language. The standard of language should be high and given importance in acquiring new languages. Languages are also important in debates at colleges, social and other organizations, business dealings, etc. English is considered the most important official language in India when compared to Tamil and other regional languages. Right from the bazaar vendors to the higher officials at post, people know English in some way or other, be it the butler's English or the standard English. Indian English is considered to be of great value. Some people do not look into the grammar, pronunciations, and other such aspects in a language. The trend has changed today. People make use of the internet, modernized and computerized trend where everything is fed in the system. One can handle it so easily as the system itself checks for errors in grammar and spellings. Thus, we conclude that language is a part of the human communication and has a major role in ethno-national society. Thank you.